feature, so it warranted an entire webinar in and of itself. There are other things that we won't have time to cover that we did release during this upcoming or this past June release, so you can go check out the release notes that we have on the website. Whenever you actually go in and sign up for the design studio, it'll show you a link to the new changes that have been made. So you can go take a look at all of those items. Now, to get to the wizard template, this is going to be where you select File, you click New, and then on the left-hand side, you're going to see the wizard template right here. And what it's going to be, the concept is that you can take a multiple page worth of input in Visualforce and combine them into a single record output. So if you've ever used like Salesforce's data flow where you could kind of traverse through a couple of pages, this is going to be that concept on steroids. So you're able to go in and create a series of pages, or a prompter, as some companies call it, where you can actually go through and have your users forced to input certain data or have branching logic to various pages based on user input. So that's where you can get all this done. So what we're going to start with is the account object today. And we're just going to modify a pre-existing account here. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And it's going to allow you to go in and create and set up all the different branches as you see fit. Now, there's going to be a couple of different types of pages that we can make, so we'll cover that very briefly. But as you can see, what it's doing right now is it's pulling in all of the metadata for the account object, just like it would for a normal page. And then on the right-hand side, there's a third tab that's not there under any other option, and it's called the Wizard tab. Now, this Wizard tab is going to be unique in the fact that there are only certain things that are on the Wizard tab that you won't get on any of the other tabs when you open up subsequent pages. For example, there is only one controller, one Apex controller for all of the Visualforce pages that you can create. I believe right now the maximum page list is capped at 20 Visualforce pages in the workflow. So if you need more branching logic than that, you can do it. But you just will have to create a second wizard to kind of govern that and then link the first to the second. So it is possible to branch beyond that if you have a really, really complex scenario. So in the center of the right-hand side of the screen, you will see kind of a yellow flashing add page bar. There's 3 different types of pages that we can add, the first of which is what's called the Salesforce layout page. This is the standard Salesforce layouts that you'll have worked with if you've ever used our tool before, or if you're brand new to our tool, this is simply where you can work with all the different Visualforce modules that Salesforce provides. You can drag them on the canvas as normal, put in the fields that you need. The second is going to be the free layout. Now, the free layout is designed for you to put some kind of form or some kind of data input sheet inside of Salesforce as a Visualforce page. So one example that if you'll stick around for other webinars that we're going to show, I'll walk through how to put a physical form into Salesforce and then have it as a data input form. We'll use the 1040EZ tax form in that example. But if you could just imagine putting a physical piece of paper into your Salesforce environment and then allowing your users to physically write on that page and then save it, and it saves as a record in Salesforce, that's the concept. The third page is what we call a summary page. And this is basically going to take all of the data that you had from the first series of pages, however many there were before that, and it's going to aggregate all those fields onto a single page so that your user has to verify and validate all of the information that was on that page before they commit that record to the database. So that's kind of the concept of what those 3 are. So let's just go ahead and dive right into this and actually get started with the thing. So as you can see, the page list is empty, so the first thing we have to do is add a button or add a page. Now I'm going to add a standard Salesforce layout for all of these different pages, but just understand you can mix and match as you see fit. So go ahead and add a page, and as you can see, the page list now will populate with our first page. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Edit button, and it brings up the first Visualforce page in the list, if you will. Now, if you were to go and add on multiple pages, as an example, we'll just go ahead and add on 2 other pages. On the center of the screen, there's a Next and a Back button. the next and back buttons traverse through the list sequentially if you don't make any changes. Now, if you happen to override the destination for the next and back buttons, then obviously it won't go sequentially. But by default, it'll just traverse through the list in the order that the page list has them represented. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and make a couple of rapid changes onto this component palette just to get this going. So we'll go ahead and drop on a couple of fields from the account object onto column number 1. Actually, we will go ahead and select this page block section. We'll increase the column count to 4 columns. So I like having options in Salesforce. And we'll just go ahead and drop on some of these required fields first. And then we'll put on a bunch of the other account information, such as the account phone number, maybe the account rating, account type, whether the account is active or not, and then let's put some stuff in the 4th column here. And we'll also put on, let's say, the annual revenue. Okay, so you can add on, whatever you want to the page. You can create your layout however you see fit. I'm going to make a couple of color changes. So you select the page block section, select the color options. You can change this to a black banner or red banner or whatever you choose. I'll change it to blue this time. And I'm going to give it a more appropriate name. So we'll just call this account information. And then at the top, we'll just call it account detail. Okay, so that's just giving it some appropriate name for the user to look at. Now again, you can add on whatever other modules or sections you'd like by simply going to the component palette on the left-hand side. There's a series of components that you can drag and drop onto the canvas. And we could even set something up to where you add another page block section right inside, and you add on a data table if you'd like, or anything of that nature. Let's just go ahead and add on some related lists. So I'm going to go ahead and add those to the bottom of the screen, and I will select that I want the activity history and the notes and attachments at the bottom of the page for this particular account. And once I've done that, we're also going to go ahead and start to modify previous pages, or I guess subsequent pages. You have just the basic account information that we need to see at a quick snapshot. Now I want to force the user that when they click the next button, they need to go and enter in all of the contact information. The idea behind what I'm going to create is that I would set this up as the series of pages the user has to go through whenever they edit or whenever they create a new account. That's kind of the concept that I'm going for today. So to get this done, we'll go back to the wizard, and now we're going to open up page number 2 and create this. Now I don't happen to want this component in the center of the screen, so we'll go ahead and remove that. Again, I want to have the contact information posted on the center of the screen. So what we'll do is I'll go ahead and go to the component palette, scroll to the left-hand side near the top. I'll add on another page block section, and then I'm going to go down to the data table on the bottom left and drag that into the new page block that I just created. Now it's going to give me all the objects that I can actively work with for this account. So I'll go ahead and click Contact. And I'd like to do some bulk edit and deletes on these contacts. I would also like the ability to set the page, or I guess the record count per page to 25. I'll go ahead and click OK, and then all of that gets handled by default. Now, if you notice, I've now added on the data table for the contact, but there are no fields to display that information. So we have 3 columns by default on the screen here. Let me shut that off on the side. So as you can see, we have 3 columns. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and insert in a few more columns. And now we're going to start dropping the fields onto the data table to give it the actual view or the representation that we need for that data table. So we go to the Related Object tab, select Contact, and then down in the bottom left are going to be all of the fields for that contact that we can drag onto the table. So we're going to find first name. We'll drag that on. We'll find last name. Drag this on. Let's also get that person's email address. Maybe, let's see, how about their phone number? That would make sense. And then maybe their title. just so we know who they are. There we go, title way down here. Now, if I need to rearrange something, I can always just swap them around with that little yellow coloring, and it'll just swap those things from left to right. So I'm going to select this email address. As you notice, there's a little underscore because I made a custom email field. Let me move the GoToMeeting out of the way here. And I want to change that so that little underscore is not visible when the user is working on that Visualforce page. So to get this done, one thing that you could do is select the field here. Oh, I selected the wrong field. Sorry. We'll go ahead and remove this. And there is an email field I should have put on. There we go. Delete and then drop the email on. All right, so we now have the ability for the user to go in and work with that contact data. Now, I added on input fields to this entire section, and that was intentional. I want the user to be able to input contact records while they're creating the account object, or to modify the contact records while they're modifying the account object. You can set up to where things are output only. And to do that, you go to the left-hand side, and there are 3 different component types when you're working with related objects. There is an input only, output only, and a label selection. So for this, you could have selected output only, and when you put them onto the canvas, it's going to look like a little green banner around. Let me go ahead and add on another column real quick to show you what that looks like. So go ahead and insert a column. You could add on business phone as an output only field, and it looks like this, where it's got a little box around the name of the field, and it's going to be display only. So that's kind of how you can tell the difference between the two, just depending on how you want the user to interact with the data tables. Let me go ahead and remove that. Now I'm going to give this data table an appropriate name, so we'll go ahead and call this contact data. And then at the top of the page, we'll go ahead and call this just contacts. Again, just so the user understands what they're looking at when they're working with this. Okay, so we've now set up the second page. And now what I want them to do is kind of traverse through to page number 3 and then set up and work with any opportunity information that needs to take place, as well as any tasks that they need to create for that account. So what we can do is go ahead and go to the wizard page here. Go to page number 3, select this. Again, I want to remove the center component. We'll go back to the Components tab, and I'm going to add on 2 new component tabs because, again, I want the opportunity and I want the tasks for the user to modify and work with. So now we're going to select the data table, put it into component number 1 that we put on the page. This one is going to be the opportunity object. And then I, again, want the ability to do bulk edit and deletes. I doubt there will be that many opportunities that we'll have per account, so we'll only select it to 10 per page, and we'll click OK. Now, again, there's going to be the standard 3-column layout. We'll change that in just a moment. But first, we're going to go ahead and add on the second data table to the canvas, and this is going to be for the task object. And I want to do bulk edit and delete in this as well. There could possibly be quite a bit of tasks that we can work with, so we'll go ahead and click OK. All right, so let's start making some changes here. We'll go ahead and insert in maybe just one for the opportunity. Now we're going to go ahead and fill in the opportunity block first. So we'll go back to the main object tab, and then we select from the drop-down list. We now have opportunity. And if you notice, task is not on this drop-down list. And the reason for that is each of the Visualforce pages operate independently, or you design them independently. They do have one common Apex controller, but anything you do on this page is not directly tied to another page. So you'll have to work with that and make sure that there's a fine balancing between how you design the layouts, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So we'll go ahead and select the opportunity object here, and we'll just start dropping some different things onto the canvas. So we want the name of the opportunity, maybe who owns it on the far end of this, and then I want to know the stage of that opportunity, and then maybe the amount for that opportunity. Let's also add on a close date. So at the very end, we'll go ahead and insert in another one, and we'll add the close dates right in here. Now, just to point this out by default, if I were to select this data table, on the right-hand side, there's a checkbox that says Ignore Required. Had I not put on the required field close date, since that checkbox is selected, it would go ahead and create that record whether or not I had put in the close date field information, even though it's required. So just be aware that if you want your users to follow any of the required field settings that you've set up, please make sure that you uncheck that checkbox or put all of the required fields onto the data table so that they have to input them. All right, now for the bottom section, this is going to be the task information. So we'll go ahead and go down to task. And we're going to go ahead and just fill this in real fast. So we want to know who the task is assigned to. I want to know the name of the task for the subject. I'd also like to know the status of it. So we'll move this over one field, and then we'll put on the status right here. And we'll go ahead and insert in the priority as well. Okay, so we now have the object for the task created on the page. So the user is now able to go in and modify the opportunity and the task objects on this page, and previously they've been modifying the contacts. So we'll just quickly make some changes. We'll call this the opportunity data. If I can type, and then we'll call this one down here, we'll call this task. And then at the top, we can just give it some kind of appropriate name and call it follow-up information or something of that nature, just to give the user an understanding of what they're working with. Now, this is technically the last page. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to put on a summary page. So we go back to the Wizard tab, and the third icon is now able to be selected. As long as you have one other page on the screen, the third icon will then pop up because it has some fields to pull and create that third page with, or I'm sorry, the summary page with. In this case, whenever I select the summary page, it's going to create that fourth Visualforce page down here at the bottom, and it's going to grab all of the data tables, all of the fields that we had from the first 3 pages, and it's going to put them onto one summary page. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Go ahead and click the edit button on that summary page, and it's going to pull up all of that information like I mentioned. Now, one thing I need to point out is that everything is going to be in output-only mode. So if you notice, there's the green banner around everything, okay? And there's all of the data tables that we'd work with on the previous 3. So if you want to, you can go in and rename things, or you can leave them as is. It did change this back to a 2-column view, so let's just go ahead and increase that. And then we'll go ahead and just drag some of these over real quick. Now, the benefit of having the view that we're showing here is that you can really enforce the user to verify all of the information. Again, this is not required that they have this view, but it is nice to be able to force that user to verify everything that they're about to commit to the database before they actually do it. So that's kind of the intent behind this summary page. So once the user goes in, they verify all of the account information, they can then save that as needed. Now, one thing I did not show was how to rename the pages, because if you notice in the Wizard, the page list has got the defaulted SVE underscore date timestamp as the Visualforce page names. Those Visualforce page names will be the names that you actually view or can assign inside of Salesforce. So you want to make those relevant. Don't name them something weird or something defaulted like we have here. Actually give them something appropriately named. And then if you notice at the top of the screen on the Wizard tab, there is the name of this wizard. This is going to be what it's called whenever you're opening up the project inside of SkyVisualEditor's Design Studio. To show this, we'll go ahead and click Open. And if you notice here, I have one for Aptus, who's another Salesforce partner. It's called Aptus Wizard Example. That's the name that I called the entire wizard flow that I built out for them. So you want to give it something appropriately named for our tool as well. And then if you also want to go in and modify the Apex class name or the Apex controller for all of those, there is a checkbox for Apex class editable, and this will be the Apex class that you can view inside of Salesforce that's connected to all of these pages. So to make the change to each of the pages individually, we have page 4 selected. You go to the Page tab on the right-hand side, the middle tab, and then the name of this is going to be what it's called inside of Salesforce. So we can call this our summary screen. And actually, I want to call this my webinar summary screen. And so now whenever I go back to the wizard, it should have renamed it at the bottom. As you can see, page number 4 is now called webinar summary screen. So you can go through, rename all of those as you see fit, and then whenever you actually deploy them out, those will be the name. So to deploy this into Salesforce, at the top of the screen, there's a little deploy icon, or you can go to File and Deploy, either way, and we'll actually send this into your Salesforce environment. Now, by best practices, you should always deploy things into a sandbox or to developer edition first to verify everything works, but we do also give you the option of deploying into a production environment as you see fit. Now, for those of you that have multiple Salesforce organizations, our tool is not, as you can see, the Design Studio is not native to Salesforce, which gives you a lot of flexibility. And the reason behind that is we work with so many large customers that have 5 to 30 instances of Salesforce in their organizations. They needed a quick way to traverse through all these different orgs to manage all the Visualforce pages. So if you go to Tools and Connection, this allows you to connect into a different Salesforce organization within our studio so that you can pull in that company's or that org's metadata into the studio as you see fit. So if you have multiple, you can toggle between the different environments without leaving the studio by simply reestablishing that connection with the new location. So once you are in the right org, you can deploy this into the correct place. Click Deploy, and it's going to package everything up. It's actually going to create all the Visualforce code for all of the pages that we just made, and then it's going to create the Apex controller, like I said, for all of those different pages. We also create all of the test code for the Apex controller, and then we deploy that into Salesforce for you to work with and actively manage. So we'll go ahead and click Open, and we're going to just kind of create a quick account and see what that looks like. So this is that page that we just made. There's no, if you notice, none of the like the page activity exists because it's a brand new record. There's nothing to show there. But we're just going to go ahead and call this a test account here. We'll tie it to my owner ID. And then we'll leave everything else blank for now. But when we click Next, it will take us to page number 2, which is where we add the contacts. So we can go ahead and click Add. We'll go ahead and add myself. And then I'll click Next again. Now it's just going to take us to page number 3 where all of the task and opportunity data resided. So we can go ahead and click Add inside of here. You can just add in a couple of test things. Again, this is all doing inline editing while we're creating the account. We're also creating all this other information. So it can just speed up the rate at which your team inputs data whenever they're entering in new account data or any custom objects that you may be working with. It just drastically helps out with that. So we can add in new tasks for them to do follow-ups on. If even we'll go to, we'll say a call. Say everything's in progress already, and we'll assign it to myself here. And the same thing for this owner ID. Assign everything to me. Now, we'll go ahead and click the Next button, and what it's going to do is it's going to show us the summary screen of all of that information that I entered on page number 1 at the top. So as you can see, most of that's blank. But if you notice, when we look at the contact, opportunity, and task, we have all 3 of those records that I had created in there as well. So it's going to create this account object when I click Save, and it's going to tie in all that opportunity, task, and contact data directly to this account record, as you can see right here. So there's all of that information. It allows your users to drastically increase the speed at which they input in that data, and can give them a nice logical workflow to work through to make sure they're entering in all of the correct information. Now, the piece that I didn't show you, I did mention that you could do branching logic. So we'll go back to page number 1. Let's say that if the account is an active account, that you want it to traverse to page 3 so they can actively work with all of the opportunity information. If it's not an active account, then you want it to just go through the standard flow of things. Well, you can click the Next button, and for the properties on the Next button, there is a destination page property that has a little ellipsis on the right-hand side. Go ahead and click that, and it's going to add in any of the transition logic. Now, given the fact that we're in a WYSIWYG type environment, and as you can see, none of this is requiring any code, we're trying to follow suit with our conditional logic as well. So we're going to build out all of the transition logic through a nice drop-down menu type of option. If you happen to know how to do Apex coding and all the page transfers and stuff, you're welcome to do that as well. We do allow you to drop the buttons onto the page and then add custom redirects and all kinds of other crazy things to your pages. But for now, we're going to just focus on this Next button, and this is going to be how we simplify that whole process so you don't have to be an Apex developer or know Visualforce to actually go in and work with these page transitions. So you can go ahead and click Add Transition, and it'll allow you to start creating all the filter logic for this. So we can say we're going to add in the first condition. We're going to say that we want it to be an active field that we're evaluating. I want this, if it's the value of yes, to take me to page number 3. Okay. Now, if you also wanted to add in a second condition that says if that active field is a no, then we want to go to page number 2. So we'll go ahead and set in that operation as well. We'll go to page number 2 for this one. So down here in the page transition, we simply select page number 2. Now we have that logic set in place based on the user input on page number 1, how we can redirect to the following pages. So this allows you to create that nice branching logic. You can always go in and add in more logical parameters as you see fit. So in case you also want, I guess that's not necessarily relevant, but in case you also want the annual revenue for active customers to only be, let's see, maybe a greater than 10,000 kind of check. There we go. Then we can also set in those kind of parameters. So once you set up all those logical transitions, you can kind of guide the way it works. And again, the back button will traverse back through the page that previously was brought from. Now, if you happen to click Cancel and remove this Next button, and let's say that you added on a custom button onto the page. So we can scroll down. There's an entire button section in the component palette. You can add on custom buttons onto the canvas. And let's say that I added one where I wanted to do a page transfer manually. So there is a page transfer option on the button, or you can do any kind of JavaScripting and Apex stuff that you'd like. But we're going to stick with the standard page transition. Now let's say that I forced the page transition instead of just going through the simple Next button that we've done. You can do this. So if we wanted to go through and select, let's see, what did I call this one? I called it Webinar. So we'll go down here, Webinar Summary Screen. Let's say that I wanted to transition this custom button when it's clicked to go to the summary screen. Then you can simply make that change, add on the ID, and pass that in. And that's how you can transition that over. Now, if you do that, when you go to the summary screen with this custom button, the back button will not take you back to this one because it doesn't follow the sequential patterns that the Wizard Apex controller has laid out. So just be aware that if you do that, if you'd like the nice simple redirect as needed, you can always select the Next button and kind of guide that process around. You can rename this. So if you wanted to, you could even get nice and sneaky and rename this to the back button, and then just have it set to where you actually remove this button here, so you have the custom forward button and then the custom back button for you to work with. So it's not just the standard stuff that our tool creates. So when we go back into Salesforce, let me show you one that's a little more complex that we've built out. It's going to follow a similar pattern to what I had just shown, but I already have it set up to where it actively is the Edit and New button, new options that you can select whenever you're working with an account. So you can see this is the standard detail view of Salesforce, and when I click the Edit button, it's going to take me through that logical step-by-step process that we've created. So here's just a more elaborate version of the thing that we created just a couple minutes ago. So I have all of the different column views at the top. We have a 4-column view, independently columned below is a 3-column view with red banner change, and that's just going to be the basic account information. Now again, as you transition through, it's just going to take me into the contact data where you can go in, you can make whatever change you need, and then finally it's going to take you into that opportunity section. But the whole concept of this is that the user can go through, verify everything, and then you can set it up to be whatever transition steps that you need to have in there. We've already covered about 30 minutes worth of materials, so I'll go ahead and I will open this up for question and answer now, and we can kind of work through some other things as needed. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask them.